Okay, the first one, 2 questions regarding stimming. Can hand flapping be replaced with a different behavior, or does it stem from diet or yeast? And then also, Shannon, I'm wondering if any of your son's symptoms got better with diet changes. I know I've heard you do GFCF, but you are yeast, sugar-free, or something similar. It seems hard to tell what is from yeast and what is behavior issue in my son. Thank you for all you guys do. So first question, can hand flapping be replaced with a different behavior, or does it stem from diet or yeast?
So that's a really good question, actually. And when we talk about stimming, that's short for self-stimulatory behavior. And hand flapping is an interesting one. When you want to try to reduce hand flapping, it's one of the behaviors that you just block. So basically, typically what we do is we will give the child something to do that it doesn't allow them to hand flap. And that would be, this is kind of the same thing as teachers tell you in the classroom, just put your hands in your pocket or sit on your hands, know, so it's just, that's the reason, it's to block the behavior. On the other hand, one of my children who used to hand flap quite a bit, actually, and he used to not only hand flap, but he would take objects and do this with them, which a lot of our kids do as well. And later he became an amazing drum player. Yeah, and so that was sort of I guess, if anything, a replacement type behavior, because it was the same kind of motion.
Yeah.
Right, but generally there isn't anything that's appropriate other than hitting the drums that looks like hand flapping. So typically we try to just block it.
It's an amazing thing. Jem did hand flap in the beginning. It very quickly went away as we started ABA, and I don't even remember them blocking it, which is a very funny thing to me. But I did share on the show the other day that I was cutting his fingernails the other day, because I'm starting to transition into him considering it, but I was still doing it, and he just had ants in his pants, and so he said, "Can I do this?" And we had a conversation about it. I said, "You used to do that all the time. Why did you do that?" And he said, "It looks interesting." And he said, "Look at it. When you do this, it's kind of cool looking." You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
And
I love the stuff we learn from the kids. I love it. It's so great.
And how grateful I am at this point in my life that I can ask him those things, because when he was 3, if you had asked me what I would have given to have been able to ask him that question and gotten that answer, I would have given you everything.
Yeah. Everything. It's an amazing answer, actually.
Yeah. So, and I've heard other parents have asked their kids, and they said, because I feel like I'm a bird and I want to fly away. I mean, I think kids have different answers for it, but it did go away for Jem, and it was a very positive thing that it went away when it did, because it helped him to interact with other kids. It was something that was preventing it.
That's right. It just, I guess, made him look different in some ways. But I think a lot of kids do hand flapping, particularly when they're excited. So they'll, get up, jump up and down, and perhaps do that. And I think so. In some ways, it's just sort of a behavior that comes with excitement. And some kids do it when they're bored. So I think what happens over the course of therapy, and like with Jem, where it goes away, is that the child is actually occupied using their hands in other ways. And then it'll go away. But you notice that even with us, we do use our hands when we speak, and so our hands are a part of like our expressive behavior. So as long as it doesn't separate them, as you mentioned, I think it's important to get rid of it when it does produce, make them look odd with their peers.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of whether or not the diet helps that, I don't know that I've seen a direct connection. Obviously, things like sugar or certain food colorings and so on will make the child typically more hyperactive. And so if you are more hyperactive, you're more likely to become anxious or just agitated or do those types of things. So it's kind of like you're stimulated. So you'll do physical motion type behaviors more. But other than that, I think the benefits of the diet are more mental.
Yeah.
I think you just wake up more, pay better attention, are able to focus, have better memory, all of those types of things are mainly the things that go with the diet. And I think the parent was kind of interested in your experience of the diet as well. And there's many different diets, obviously.
Absolutely. And we've tried a lot of them, and I'm actually considering looking at, we've changed, because Julie Matthews was on the show a couple of weeks ago with you, and she said a couple of things that I thought, I need to go back and tweak a couple of things.
Yeah.
We started out, it was very interesting how we came to the diets, that while we were waiting to get our funding through the regional center, I kept saying to everyone, what can I be doing in this time? I as soon as I knew, and we had the diagnosis of autism, and everybody was talking about early intervention, you got to start right this minute. And it felt like this really strange, cruel world, because I said, okay, then let's start today. And everybody went, oh, fill out this paperwork and wait 3 months.
I know, it's terrible.
And it was just, it's a hurry up and wait kind of thing. So I kept saying to everybody, what can I do in the meantime? Well, now I would tell people, go on IBT and do a bunch of trainings and get yourself caught up to speed and get on skills and start. But I didn't have that in that moment, because you were working on that and I didn't know you yet. And but I said to one person, I said, what can I be doing? Please tell me something I can be doing, because you feel like you're going to jump out of your skin. And she said, well, there's that diet. And I said, what is it? And she said, the gluten-free diet. I didn't even know what gluten was, but here's the irony. I'm allergic to wheat. But I didn't know what gluten was. Probably because I'm allergic to wheat, it just wasn't part of my vocabulary. And I said, what are you talking, what's gluten? And she said, oh, it's wheat. And to me, because I'm allergic to wheat, I thought, okay, this is something I can do. So we started gluten-free then, and we saw a huge difference in our child. And that isn't the case in every child, but in our child, we saw a huge difference. So then I started Googling gluten-free diet autism, and I saw gluten-free casein-free. So then we added the casein to it, and oh my goodness, we were in a different ballpark already. And we had such tremendous progress as we were working towards starting ABA. And then we hit a little bit of a wall where we weren't seeing any more progress beyond that. And I saw in my child's diet that all he wanted to eat was potatoes. So then we went to the next thing, and for a very brief period of time, literally 28 days, we were on the specific carbohydrate diet, and we were being monitored daily by a doctor, but he went into ketosis very quickly, and that was not helpful. But we took out a bunch of other things, because we looked at the Feingold diet, so we took out tomatoes, and potatoes were out, and grapes, and apples, and a whole bunch of other things. We took yeast out. There was no sugar in his diet, and then over the years, we've added things back in. So he does have tomatoes, and he does have potatoes. We very closely monitor his intake of fruit sugar, but there is no sugar in his diet. And for a while, we very severely limited fruit. If you ask my child what would he like for a treat, other kids would say a piece of candy. That doesn't even enter my child's realm of understanding, but he'll say, can I have a cutie, a little cutie orange? And that's a big treat for him. But if I were to give him a bunch of cuties, even all these years later, he would act like a drunk person.
Really?
Very quickly.
Amazing.
And I think I need to go back and do some other work with him biomedically to see if we can tilt that balance so that isn't the case.
Yeah, that would be very important. I mean, I think we all should. I actually even think sometimes that I should be doing the same thing, not just with my kids, but with myself. And I think it's important to look at the things that we're sensitive to in our diet.
Yes.
And these days, I mean, pretty much, as you know, my belief is that most of what we eat is unhealthy anyway. I always feel better when I'm not eating at all, if I'm just doing, which is also a diet called the elemental diet, where you're just drinking shakes, protein and vitamin shakes.
Wow.
But mainly, and that a lot of our kids are on that, who are very, very prone to GI disorders. So some of the gastroenterologists will place our kids on the elemental diet as well, which is really just nutrients in liquid form.
I'm very interested, because this sounds like something that, we might have to consider at some point to get him completely cleaned out.
Yes. The thing is, though, It's first of all long term, and then coming off of it is a very, very gradual process, and it's difficult, obviously, for kids. And he will lose weight on it. That's the other thing. But having said that, it's very important to tell parents that the various diets are not necessary for everyone.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I always suggest that you start with looking at dietary issues with your kids, because you really want the child to be at his or her healthiest, let's say. Diet often will affect our kids' sleep patterns, and then our kids are not sleeping, and on top of that, now we're trying to teach them stuff, and they're just not able to. But also, diet, as I said, like some of our kids, that we can control their seizures with diet. Some of our kids, like night and day reaction with the right foods. Some of the kids come in with very serious rashes, which are mostly fungal, and you can get rid of those with diet. These are extremely important things. So seeing a nutritionist, figuring out the diet that's right for your child, and then doing it is one of the biggest impacts you can have.
Absolutely. And I have to say, even personally, was it 2 weeks ago today that I got back my allergy test results, and they were telling me that I'm allergic now to milk and bananas.
Really?
And I pretty much live on yogurt.
Amazing.
And they said it's time to stop. You must be having physical reactions to this because you're very allergic to not only cow's milk but goat's milk also. And and it has been an interesting couple of weeks for me going off of it. I had a little bit of a rebound.
Yes, sure.
I have a new appreciation for what it's like when our kids get taken off of these things.
Yes.
And I'm finally starting to feel differently, and it's amazing.
Yes.
It is like somebody pulling back another curtain, and you go, wow, look at all the great things happening.
And it took, about 2 weeks or so to adjust
2 weeks.
It's hard.
2 weeks where I said, I thought I was going to feel better, and I didn't. I felt worse.
That's just casein, for instance, or milk. But with gluten, it takes even longer.
Yeah, and I don't eat gluten because I happen to be allergic to wheat. So now I am officially GFCF. Probably for the rest of my life.
That's amazing.
Not as much fun as I thought.
No, I know.
I'm familiar with the diet, but I'm also I'm mostly vegetarian on top of that, where my son is not. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks sorting it out, but I do feel better, and feeling better, we talk about this on the show all the time, is pretty much everything. After that, everything, if you don't have your health, what do you have?
That's right.
And if we expect our kids to be, their highest, most productive, reach their highest possibilities, then getting them healthy has to be high on the list, if not the top thing.
That's right. And it is, absolutely something you can do before you start a behavioral program, or during, or whatever,
And we've got a question that's coming up about, what to do if you haven't been able to start services. But it is interesting to me now that I get asked that question a lot about what should I be doing right now. And I always tell people, start the process of getting ABA, because it's a process. I think a lot of places are getting it honed, funding sources are getting it a little bit easier as time goes by, but it's still a process to get that started. And then while you're waiting, get as educated as you can, and now you've made it so much easier. As we talked about, ibehavioraltraining.com, you can go there and get educated very inexpensively. It's such a gift.
I love the trainings on there. I mean, they're just so friendly and easy, and the team our IBT group of clinicians, senior clinicians who've been doing this for a very long time, they're working real hard. They're putting together a lot of new ones are being uploaded continuously. And now they just, fixed the technology so that you can play all the modules on your iPad, iPhone,
That's
iDevices.
wonderful.
Yeah,
That's great.
So it is. I think it's fabulous. I mean, that means anywhere you are, you're waiting anywhere. You know, in a
Yes.
doctor's office or here or there, you could actually be looking at the trainings. Yeah.
Absolutely a wonderful thing. So I think that's a crucial thing to do. They can get started on skills,
Yeah.
doing the assessment of skills,
right.
which will get them ahead of the game. And then the other thing, the other component is getting your child healthy. Get the doctor's appointments
right.
that you need
That's
to.
right.
Take a look at their diet to get it as healthy as possible. You don't have to do anything cold turkey overnight. Julie was talking about that with us, that you want to be gradual about things, but to get your child as healthy as possible as quickly as you possibly can. All important components.
Right.
But we did have somebody who wrote in and they said, where can a parent go for help for their child when money is drained, regional denied them, and they're a single parent that has nothing left to fight because it's taking everything to survive the day?
That's terrible. Yeah, and so if the parent is referring to a regional center,
I think so. So that would
means
be
they're
a
in California, right?
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, there's no way that you don't have resources here in California. There's so many resources. So I can completely understand that the parent would be just exhausted from all of it, though, and it's unfortunate. Some of the regional centers do make it harder than others.
Yep.
There's no question, and it's difficult to deal with some of them. But now here we also have insurance coverage, and I mean, I guess what we do for our families is from the minute you call in, the very first thing is we will get your insurance information while we're even looking to see what we can do or whether we can treat your child. And then our contracts department, Bryce, as you know, will be checking the information on the benefits.
Yes.
That in itself does take a little bit of time because your insurance companies are not always that fast in responding. But once we have their approval, then we start services pretty rapidly. I'm just coming up with a new kind of formula or solution so I can start all the kids on our wait lists. I think I've figured it out now how to do that.
Yay!
I know, it'll be really nice because we had a lot of kids join the wait list over the last year and I feel bad about these little guys waiting. So I think we've figured out how to spread our supervisors differently so that they can take on more kids. But there is funding in California. There's regional center funding, school district funding as well.
Yeah.
And also insurance funding. So I'm not sure how old the child is. I feel horrible that this parent is so worn out.
Here's what I'd like to throw into the mix for this, because we threw out a challenge a couple of weeks ago on the show that I was talking about. We did a sort of funding 101 for autism, and I said what I learned really early on that a really incredible parent said to me is, you're going to find the way. Just get that in your head. You're going to find the way. Get the support that you need. But she said there's always a way. I did not believe it. I still can't do the math on it. I don't know how we found the way. I really don't. And I said, but I have that to pay forward. And I said that I would love to take on 2 families, that if you are lost and feel stuck and you need some help and support, that I would love to help you figure it out. Because sometimes you just need another person in there with you.
That's
and
so
I'm a
nice.
bulldog.
That's so nice, yeah.
And so if you're interested in working with me on, because Regional Center, you can petition if you've been denied, and I'd be happy to work with you on that and figure out if you what your other resources are. Because a lot of times I know what it's like to be overworked, underslept, and feel like there's nothing, you have nobody in your corner. I'd love to be in your corner and to work with you to see if we can't figure out what is there for you.
That's right. And that's so nice of you. Actually, that makes me think what a wonderful thing that right there, to pay it forward that way to help another parent. I mean, I wish all parents would do what you just said.
And I think that a lot of parents do in different support groups. But if you don't know how to find the support group to find that parent, it still feels like you're alone. You could be 3 inches from the help, but you just don't know. You know.
So true.
So I would say that, and let's work through it together and see if we can't figure it out together, because you're never alone in this. It feels like you are, but you're not.
No, and that's one of the reasons that I love Amy, who does our 800 number.
Yes.
I mean, and she's a clinician. She's been with us for a long time, and she's just so patient and terrific on the phone. And I love That's why I tell parents, just call our 800 number.
Yes.
Amy will sit on the phone with you for a long time
Yes.
and try to guide you and advise you and tell you where to go. And if she can't, then she'll refer you to Kathy. And
Yep.
there's a lot of people here who will just try to help on the phone as well.
Absolutely. And we should, Emily, give them the 800 number for card because, and you will, it's Amy Fuentes that Dr. Granpeesheh is referring to. She was actually one of Jem's senior therapists for a while.
Yeah.
Amazing. She came to us as a fill-in. Sometimes your therapist won't be able to come for whatever reason if they've gotten ill or something has happened, and then a fill-in comes. And that's how we met Amy. Amy would come with her bag of toys.
Yeah, she's great.
And she would be pulling out these new things. She always had something fascinating, different things for Jem to build. A really incredible person, and she takes it's personal with her. So when you call that 800 number, you're not getting, somebody who does not know the deal. Amy wants to get in the trench with you to sort it out.
It's true.
Real person who cares deeply. But also, I would like to be on your team. So I can't, unfortunately, I can't do that for absolutely everybody. But I said I could do that for 2 people. And if more people write in and want to do that, I can find other people who would be willing to do that as well. So
that's very nice.
Don't be by yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Very important.
Okay, we should take a quick break and come back with more of your questions. You guys are writing in. It's wonderful. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Don't forget that it's Dr. Granpeesheh's birthday, and so thrilling that she's here with us today on her birthday. So we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Autism Live for this segment, a special segment of Ask Dr. Doreen. You just saw the time lapse of them shaving my head. We have to say a special thanks to Mark Christopher Lawrence,
absolutely,
the wonderful actor and comic who was here and did such a great job. He was so patient.
He's such a terrific guy.
And he's so giving of his time for autism.
Totally. He really is.
He was with us on Saturday for the Act Today military family run, and playing with the kids in the kids zone that Card sponsored. He was just lovely and delightful.
Great guy.
He's going to be back with us, I think, next Wednesday. He is going to co-host Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy because
is he? Okay.
you and Nancy are going to be in Sacramento, I believe, working on some bills next Wednesday.
Yes.
Some important legislation that you're helping to push through and sponsoring.
Yeah, there's a rally that is next Wednesday, my goodness.
It is,
the 17th, yeah.
Time flies in the month of April. There's so much going on.
April is very, very busy.
It is a busy month. Yeah. But I also have to say, for those of you who, if you want to be writing in to ask Dr. Granpeesheh a question right now, you can on our live feature. This was a question that I promised from last week. It came in right at the end, and I promised we would get to it today. Hi, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. Thanks a lot for the segment. My child is 9.5 years old now. When we started sight reading at 4.5 years, he did that very well. However, it took a while for him to read phonetically. Right now, he can read simple words such as number, spoon, etc. on his own, which is great. However, he has started spelling out the words which he learned as sight reading. For example, he says THIS, this. I don't know how to tell him that if he knows the word, he need not spell it out. I am confused if I should just ask him to spell silently. Any tips would be great. Also, any ideas on how to build the fluency would be so helpful as well. And they wrote, thank you.
That's so great. I love parents are so amazing. Like, you read these things and you think, how many parents do we know in this world that are just that involved with their kids? It's just amazing to me, these parents. So, I wish there was a real fast answer to that. I guess what you're trying, if you are trying right now just to stop him from sounding out the letters individually or spelling out the letters, then just when he starts to, ask him, show him a word, and when he starts to do that, just stop him and actually start modeling the full word again. In other words, the minute he starts to say the letters or spell them out, you just stop and then you'll say the whole word and he'll imitate you. So it's he's just confused. It's not that he's just trying to figure out now, okay, which one is it? Like, what am I supposed to do? Or when I see a word, do I say the whole thing or do I spell it, then I say the whole thing? He's just confused. So you just need to teach him to that he should say the words, and he will only really spell them out when you ask him to spell. that's the SD, or the discriminative stimulus for that. Having said that, in terms of fluency, I guess, a lot of our kids are sight readers, and that moves things forward pretty fast because they have such an incredible memory. But it is, after all, it becomes limited because you end up, filling your head with thousands of things you've memorized. And in some ways, it is just a starting thing, and it is always better to go to phonetics because then they can sound out pretty much anything. I don't know the child's level of functioning, but in typical development, you are doing everything phonetically probably by about 2 to 3, and so you're starting to recognize sounds, and then are able to usually, that's when kids write things phonetically as well, and they start to sound things out in their environment. There's a lot of really good programs out there for just reading. Actually, a lot of good computer programs as well that can teach reading, and so you might want to look in, technology for some options, kids' educational programs. Otherwise, we do have a whole section on this in skills, on how to read words and all that, how to sound out and phonetic reading and all of that. I'm just trying to remember the name of a program that we like, but I've lost it right now. But I mean, if you look up, if you just put in reading programs for kids with autism, a lot of different things come up, so that you can just purchase.
And if you think of it later on, today or this week, then we'll put it on our Facebook, so that we'll let people know that that's a good one to do. But awesome that, I love that you're saying, these are 2 different skills, and awesome that he has them. We're just going to separate them.
Yeah, he's just confused. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Awesome. Because sometimes we get afraid as parents, and that it takes the fear out of it. Okay, bunch of questions here. Just wondering if CARD has any affiliates in Canada or any plans to come here. I think for the most part, each province provides a certain amount of ABA that is covered under our healthcare. There are still waiting lists, but it is offered. So if you are lucky, you don't have to wait that long. But the more I watch your show and hear about your organization, you seem the best of the best. Nice. Just curious.
Well, so my fiance's entire family is Canadian. They're all from Canada, and so I go to Canada quite a bit. They're from the Toronto area and Cambridge, and so we have done a number of conferences out there. In fact, also I've done conferences all over Canada, actually, come to think of it. Toronto, in Vancouver. In October, I'm doing one in British Columbia as well. So you should probably write in if you're interested, because there's no limitation on us providing this sort of thing anywhere in the world, really, and I'd love to get something started in Canada. For me, I decided some years ago that I would really stay focused within the US. We did initially, when I started opening CARD offices many years ago, actually I think one of the first, or I don't remember now the order of the offices, but very early on we opened a clinic in London, and then later in Oxford in England, and then Australia, Sydney, and then in Auckland, New Zealand. So we did kind of have some international offices going on very early on, and we realized that it takes up a lot of time and effort to deal with the regulations of different countries, and you end up, it just became too difficult, where you had, all the employee regulations, human resources type laws, and they're so different from the US. I mean, it's amazing how different they are. Like in Australia, for instance, everybody has a paid 6-week vacation at the end of the year, or like in certain parts.
Let's all move to Australia. My goodness, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is. And like the longer you work, let's say if you work 10 years or something, you get a huge payout when you stop working.
Wow.
There's all kinds of stuff. So I decided to focus more in the States, and then what we started to do was, if there are groups of people who are interested in opening something in their own country, for instance, anywhere in Canada, I'd really love to do that. That would be very easy for us.
Right.
What we would do then is we would basically set up like an affiliate model like we have with our friends in South Africa.
I was just going to say the Star Academy. What a lovely job you guys are doing there. Yeah.
And I mean, and it's not really just us. It's Ilana and Martin being amazing people. They really, really are amazing people. And sometimes when I go see them, I think some of their staff are just, fabulous. Like, just amazing people, honestly.
Wonderful.
They've developed this program, and all they had when I met them a few years ago was one school, and that's not even their business. Their business is they're diamond dealers, So
I didn't know that.
They had gotten this small building mainly because of their son, and so they had opened a school, and all they wanted to do was just to have a program for him. And I think they had maybe 7 or 8 kids when I went there the first time. And over the course of the following year, basically they changed all their staff. They got people that we liked and we trained. And then what they did is it just became more and more. They grew the training, the quality, and then now they have 4. They have 4 centers, and they just packed, and they could take on more and more, and the entire country is coming to them for help.
Amazing.
And they are amazing people, and we're still, continuously out there, as you know.
Right.
And John Galley is our director of expansion or remote services is what we call it now. And so what he does is he will go out to the site wherever people are. Let's say anywhere in Canada. If you have a school that might be interested in working with us, or psychologists or behavior analysts. We actually have behavior analysts in Canada that we know. So it's just a matter of kind of, getting in touch with us. You'd want to call in or email in and actually talk to John Galley.
Okay. And that's Galle.
Right.
But you can go to the resources tab of CARD and find your way there, or you can send your information and I'll forward it to John personally.
Right. And I mean, John's email is j.galley@centerforautism.com, and he'd be happy to hear from you. He's evaluating a lot of different places right now. I mean, he's also involved with our expansion in Hawaii. And he's, of course, very involved with our South America expansion because he's gone back and forth to Colombia as well. We're trying to do something there. So he's a traveler, and he does a lot. He oversees the South Africa program. He did the Middle East for us for a long time. And so he'll take it step by step and guide families so that we can try to help set up something. And even if that doesn't happen, obviously we can provide remote services to your child.
Okay.
So you don't have to open a program, in Canada. You can also just have services for your child where a supervisor like John would fly back and forth to you and help your child. We'd hire and train people in the local area and so on.
And it is something that I'm learning as time goes on, and we've said it before on the show, all ABA is not the same.
No, it's not.
And so it's important that you're working with people that are of a caliber. And the only services we ever got were from CARD, and I certainly appreciated it while we were getting it, but over the years I've come to appreciate how lucky we were.
Well, thank you, Shannon. It's hard to keep a high quality of care because there's so many restrictions from every possible way. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Not just things that we're not allowed to do because of our funding sources, but then also things that you have to watch for in terms of employee regulations, and it's just really hard to balance all of it. So, how much training can I actually give my employees? I'm restricted by the amount because if I give them too much training, then I have to move their level of work level up and continuously. I mean, there's all these different rules. And so, but we try very, very hard. And like when you hire someone, just for our field, for instance, we fingerprint everyone and get Department of Justice clearances on everyone before they go to anybody's house, before they even have access to a child ever. But the problem is, that process takes a while, and they're our employee, and you have to actually get them out there when they're employees. And there's a lot of different restrictions, but we try really, really hard to maintain the quality. I guess the most meaningful thing to me is when I hear parents say, exactly like what you just said about Amy Fuentes. You know, just the characters of these guys at the junior therapist level or the senior therapist level, and I love to hear that because at every point they're making such a huge difference.
Yeah, well,
and I love that.
I can tell you the people who came into our home changed our lives forever.
Yeah, that's
forever.
fabulous. That's so great to know.
I'll get all mushy. And you know, for many of those years, I had not had the opportunity to meet you.
That's true.
And they would talk about you, and I would think, thank God for that woman because she created the place that's helping us, but that's who you were to me, the person who created the place. But I was always aware of the fact that we saw such consistency that I was clear on the fact that somebody at the top was doing something really good.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
And then I met you and heard you speak, and literally I've said before that I got chills and I shook for 2 hours afterwards because you showed us what your plan was. Of how you were going to help children all over the world, and that's when I said, okay, this woman is the real deal. This is an amazing thing. It changed how I looked at autism forever, both first with my child and then later to see what your plan was of how you were going to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, thank you.
You were on an amazing mission in your life. And I'm just happy to be along as somebody who says, what can I do from time to time? Because I just think that you're amazing, and that's why I said you're my hero.
Oh, no, I appreciate it, Shannon. But honestly, the truth is, like, even if you look at all the stuff that we do here, and it's just so many people that are incredible. Like I said, I'm just very, very lucky and blessed to, you know, be in the position to take credit for it, honestly.
Well, but I think it comes from the top.
It does.
But you're right. You have a staff that's amazing.
They're
but I think it's
incredible
because
people.
you've attracted them.
Yes, yeah, that's true. I mean, people come to CARD now, and I you know, when I talk to the core team, like the higher level senior people that have been here for 20 years, when I talk to them, I always say, don't worry. You know, if someone comes in and they're just not all that good in some way or another, whether as a human being or in behavior analysis, they just don't last that card. They don't, because the system is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be good.
Yes.
Otherwise, the other supervisors won't allow you to be there. You know, it's kind of funny. Like, it's a pretty tough group of people, and you are constantly challenged and evaluated and reviewed, and you have to go through so many levels of credentialing and training and pass this exam and that one, and oh, by the way, you know, all these what we call the QA drop-ins, quality assurance drop-ins, and you don't know when they're coming, and they just drop in on you. So you have to be good here to survive. But you know, that core team, the higher level folks who've been here, they're the ones that keep it going. And they're the ones that are amazing.
They are absolutely amazing. We're running out of time. We've got all these questions. A couple of people who've written in very specifically saying happy birthday to Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. From our friends at Autism Will Not Define My Son, they wrote in and said, here's to many more happy birthdays. Somebody who wants an example of what he eats for breakfast, packs for lunch, and eats for dinner, which I will get to a little later on. One quick, long question here. Happy birthday, Dr. Doreen. Many best wishes to you and many wonderful years to come. Question for you. My daughter's 6, high-functioning autistic, going through extinction burst, is now hitting her head in walls, chairs, floors, whatever surface is hard and makes a sound. Previously, she used to repeat words nonstop until mom repeats them. I think we talked about this particular person. Now, I'm not repeating them, not even paying attention to the bad behavior and redirecting her to some other activity and it says prompt her read it. I think prompt her to read it. But she's a smart cookie and now knows that I'm not attending to the bad behavior. So she hits her head and screams, throws herself to the floor, won't let anyone touch her, hits herself, etc. This parent writes that they use skills and language is getting huge, all in capital letters, improvement. But behaviors are noted for attention and escape, like on homework time or bathroom time while doing preferred activities. I'm not sure what to do or how to handle this bursting in the right way. Any advice, please, and thanks.
Well, what an amazing parent there again.
Yes.
We don't do enough for these parents. We need to have, sometimes when I'm on this show, I think we should have just a I mean, actually, this is one of the legislation things that I'm pushing right now is a telehealth bill.
Yes.
Because I really feel that if we were able to, by law, be allowed to provide really serious guidance through the phone and through, technology like Skype or so on, we'd really be able to help a lot of more people.
Yes.
It's pretty restricted what we can do right now. Every family has to have a certain level of physical contact for us to be able to do telehealth, and it's really important.
Yeah.
Like in this particular case, the parent wrote two things, and then I went back and forth on this, because the first thing was that the child hits their head and that the parent thinks it's an extinction burst. If it is, that means that your child is doing this. See, an extinction burst happens because from the perspective of the child, this is what's going on. The child's thinking, I used to hit my head and everybody would freak out and come and help me or give me attention or allow me to stop doing whatever it was and blah, blah, blah. And so, or I used to do whatever. And now they don't let me do that anymore, so I'm going to freak them out in some other way, or I'm going to do it more so that people do react. And that's what's going on. So it's kind of like the child's thinking, how high do I have to raise the bar here for people to react?
Yeah. So, what's it going to take to get what I used to get easier?
Exactly.
What do I have to bring here?
Exactly.
I'll throw the biggest fit I have to.
That's exactly right. So, it's what you would do in a situation if you want to have the extinction burst shorten, the burst shorten, is you literally leave the room. You don't interact with the child. You don't try to redirect them during an extinction burst ever. You do not redirect them. You literally, the minute an extinction burst starts, you leave. And guaranteed it'll die down much faster. Now, having said that, there's two things I want to caution you about. One is, depending on your child's temper, I guess, or how, dysregulation of their own aggravation. I doubt it. I mean, I've never really seen this, but it is possible that your child might hit his head or her head hard enough against the wall that it would actually hurt.
Yeah.
I don't think that he or she, it's very unlikely that he would do it to a point of physical danger. You'd be amazed that, we think our kids will, but they don't. They're doing it because you're reacting. That's the main reason that they do it. The one thing, though, that the parent wrote in there, which made me rethink it, was that the parent wrote something about any surface that makes a sound.
Yeah.
And see, that brings in another function for the child. So it's possible that the child's not really doing this only to get your attention, but also because they like the sound. And if that's the case, leaving the room or ignoring the behavior is not going to change it.
Right.
They're going to keep doing it because they like the sound.
And that brings up for me, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but that brings up for me how important it is that you're working with someone when these kinds of things happen.
Definitely.
Because as a parent, we could go back and forth and make a mistake and put the child at risk when we make a mistake. So that really brings it home.
Or delay the whole thing. I mean, here you are thinking, okay, this is definitely an extinction burst, but is it? I mean, is it really an extinction burst based on something else you took away, or is the child self-stimulating with the sound of this thing? I don't know. And the way that you would handle that, obviously, is to block it, and then you can replace. If it is a sound effect that the child's getting, then you can allow the child other activities that would produce that sound, which would be fine.
Like a drum or
like
something else like
or
that.
headphones or anything else, right? But if you are certain that the function of this behavior is just that the child wants to get your attention, then that means you remove your attention when that behavior is occurring, and you give your attention when that behavior is not occurring, okay? So you leave the room, but the minute that it's not happening, before or after, this would actually be called sort of non-contingent reinforcement, you increase your attention to the child, and you could even teach the child ways of coming and saying, I need you to play with me, or I need you to be with me, or whatever it is. So essentially you want to make sure the child's getting attention, but just not for that particular behavior. And again, like Shannon, you said, it's so important to pay attention to the fact that these are not things that you should be doing on your own. Sometimes when we start going into heavy behavioral issues that are, like, I wouldn't even classify this as self-injury, by the way. The classic definition of self-injurious behavior is that it occurred not in the presence of anyone. And that's more of a self-stimulatory type thing than an aggression. So I would say you should try to get in touch with, so I don't know where this parent is.
Yeah, I don't either.
We do have SOS services, which is sort of the specialized outpatient, and we try to help. We will just try to send you a supervisor who can train you and guide you through these types of things.
Absolutely. So crucial when it's things like that. I always like to compare, because, we think with our kids we should know everything, that as if they were born and an owner's manual was downloaded in the back of our brain. But if your car weren't functioning and you said it could be the brakes or it could be the electrical system, you would never leave it up to yourself to decide that. You would always go to a mechanic.
Right.
And our kids are certainly more important to us than our cars.
Right. And a lot of times it's also harder for us because we're so subjective about it.
Absolutely.